First of all, please forgive me for using a text-to-speech program. I believe that I would be better understood if I use it. This will be my movie review and I have chosen Lady in the Water, 2006 by M. Night Shyamalan and starring Paul Giamatti. This review will be like my own analysis or opinion about the film. Spoiler alert ahead. First, I would agree that this film was really confusing in how the story was presented. However, I believe it is what M. Night Shyamalan's films are all about. I have only watched Sixth Sense and The Village, and I have come to realize that there is more than meets the eye. The major thing that I would talk about in this film are the characters that were supposed to help story, the Narf, in her quest to go back home. As presented, there was the writer/vessel, interpreter/symbolist, guild, healer, and the guardian. There was also the man who had no secrets and the man whose opinion was most highly regarded. But I will focus on the latter five. As the film suggested, the writer was Vikram, M. Night Shyamalan himself, the interpreter was Mr. Duri at first, which later became his son, Joey Duri, the guild were the five men, which then became the seven sisters as interpreted by Joey Duri, the healer was Mrs. Bell, which later became Cleveland Heap, and the guardian, who was thought to be Cleveland Heap, but later revealed to be Reggie. As you can see, there were so many changes or confusion in the characters' roles, making it very difficult to ascertain what was really going on. Now, here is what I think about who those characters were that have helped story. I believe that all those people, the writer, interpreter, guild, healer, and guardian were all Cleveland Heap himself. First, the writer. Heap in his quest to help story, tries to find the writer who would apparently bring change to the world. It did not help that story did not know the name, let alone the face, of the writer that she was destined to meet. However, as Heap investigates on who could be the writer, he stumbles on Vikram and her sister by the laundry, asking him about his writing. He then offers to repair the light in Vic's room to determine if his hunch was correct and sees the cookbook. Puzzled, he tries to determine whether it was really a cookbook. Vic then told him that he was writing about cultural problems and leaders. This then led him to believe that Vic was the writer, which is then supported by Vic's feelings of apparent pins and needles when he saw story. Then why did I say that Heap could be the writer? First, the feeling of pins and needles. It was never really directly mentioned that this was the only feeling of awakening the vessel would feel. Remember that Heap's stuttering was absolutely gone whenever he was near story. Also, at about 30 minutes and 21 seconds into the film, story is seen going through Heap's things, finding a pen, and then finding his journal. Heap's journal chronicled his grief about the tragic loss of his wife and children, and how he blamed himself for not being there. After the part when story gets the journal, the scene immediately transfers to Vic, which was part of the confusion. At about 34 minutes and 19 seconds into the movie, Heap and story have a conversation regarding what was in the journal. At 37 minutes and 14 seconds, in her own words, story tells Heap, "Your words are very beautiful, your heart is very big." Now, being a writer does not necessarily mean you have something that has been or will be published. Anybody, writing something about something can be considered a writer. Heap's journal was read by story who regarded his words as very beautiful. Also, the world that will be changed by the writer may not be the human world. It could be the blue world, as story was felt to be a Queen Narf and that her arrival would be seen as a great inspiration. There was also some point in the movie wherein Heap started writing in his journal again, a sort of awakening. Also, at the end of the film, Heap thanks story for reading his journal and for saving his life. Second, the interpreter/symbolist. The interpretations and symbolisms offered by both Mr. Duri and his son were out of this world. They interpreted things in crossword puzzles and cereal boxes. But then again, their interpretations could indeed be true. Here are the instances in the movie, where I felt Heap could also be the interpreter/symbolist. There was a dialogue in the movie when Heap asked for help from the film critic on who the interpreter could be. The critic said, Look for any character who is doing something mundane, but required analysis. Heap had noticed in the early part of the movie that the sprinklers were being set off. And at the night of the party, Heap instructed Anna Ran, Vic's sister, to look for a scrunt near a sprinkler that was turned on. Heap also positioned two of the supposed guild members facing a sprinkler that was on. Near at the end, he also saw a fallen potted plant near where Story was supposed to be standing. Heap interpreted this as something bad has happened to Story and that a scrunt might be involved. He ran to it and followed a path of grass that was bent down. And true enough, he was able to save Story again, and surprisingly the scrunt leaves them both behind. Something was said about the interpreter at about 1 hour and 15 seconds, he will interpret messages from the universe if problems should arise. Now the guild. There was a conversation in the film, and I was told that there is a guild, whose many hands will combine to help, they're supposed to help with their hands. A guild in the olden times was meant to include weavers, dyers, armorers. A medieval association of merchants or craftsmen, who were good with their hands. In this movie, Heap was also portrayed as a handyman. He could fix lighting, plumbing, and others. In short, he was good with his hands in many aspects of the building maintenance. He also uses his hands to help. Next would be the healer. I guess everybody would agree that Heap was indeed the healer as he healed the wounds of Story after the Scrunt's second attack on her. The wounds magically healed. I would also add to the fact that Heap was a doctor as mentioned by Story after reading his journal. When Heap was healing Story, he sounded like he was talking to his family, wife, and children, and not to Story or the people around him. As Heap stated at about 1 hour 36 minutes and 34 seconds, "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I should have been there. I am always gonna regret, just not being there. I'll miss your faces. Oh, they remind me of God. I'm so lost without you guys. I met this very nice lady, and her name's Story. And I think you would have liked her." By this show of emotion and truthfulness in his heart, it probably healed Story's wounds. It also made Story's face the brightest in the movie. Lastly, the Guardian. Now, this one is also misleading. Story believed that Heap was the Guardian, so he thought of challenging the Scrunt, but failed to do so, as he was almost killed, only to be saved by the appearance of Mr. Farber. At the end, the movie apparently revealed that Reggie was the Guardian. However, here are some thoughts about how Heap could also be the Guardian. As we saw in the film, when Heap first challenged the Scrunt, he was very scared and alone. The camera did not really show that he was looking at the Scrunt's eyes directly. Now, when he came face to face with the Scrunt a second time, there was already courage in his eyes, as opposed to his whimpering voice the first time. Also, as he turned to face the Scrunt, he unknowingly, probably unconsciously picks up a stick, or the pole for the pool, and holds it firmly in his hand as he stares longer at the Scrunt, almost leveling at the eyes of the creature. This could be interpreted as a challenge to the Scrunt. Also, as Heap bends down to pick up the stick, the camera shows that Story is behind Heap. This means that Heap is between Story and the Scrunt, thereby Heap is guarding Story from the Scrunt. This is different from the first time, wherein Heap was not guarding anybody, but merely asking for a fight. However, there again the convoluted events, when Heap turns and believes that Reggie is the Guardian, instructing him to not take his eyes off the Scrunt. As Reggie advances, the Scrunt moves backward. I think it was not revealed for how long the Guardian should stare at a Scrunt for it to be frozen and for it to move backward. There was a considerable time when Heap was staring courageously at the Scrunt before turning his head to Reggie. Also, at 1 hour 10 minutes and 34 seconds, Story stated, "The Guardian can hypnotize a Scrunt. If the Guardian looks directly into the Scrunt's eyes, it will be compelled to stay frozen or move backwards." Now, this ends my review on the movie, Lady in the Water. I hope I have explained my opinions clearly, and thanks for listening.